Welcome to this panel discussion. This is titled Dakshinachitra, Institutional Practices, Sustainability and Future of the Regional Museum. I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Shruti Parthasarathi. I've had the honor of curating an exhibition that is ongoing from the Dakshinachitra's permanent collection. This is a collection across craft traditions, visual and performative traditions, artifacts, objects, and modern and contemporary art. And this panel discussion is linked or in association with this ongoing exhibition. Very briefly, the exhibition is aiming to draw attention to this diverse collection and this kind of collection building practice that the museum has had. And it's sort of a surprise to many of us, many that I've spoken to in Chennai, were very, very familiar with Dakshinachitra as an institution. Such a collection from the more modern and contemporary period is unexpected. And the panel is the discussion we have here today, we have some, I can say admittedly, easily eminent people from the world of cultural and arts landscape in South India, but based in Chennai. And I will do a very quick introduction of all of our panelists. And before I just give everyone's introduction, the panel is going to examine Dakshinachitra as an example of, I think, a pioneering institution, also possibly unique, not just in South India, I think in India, for a very southern arts and cultural heritage focus. And I'd like us to maybe look at some aspects that have been part of its institutional practices, to then also see where we might be headed, both this institution but larger learnings. That's the hope. So we have Dr. Deborah Thiagarajan. We have the founder of Dakshinachitra Heritage Museum. We have RM Palaniappan, senior artist and trustee of Dakshinachitra. We have Dr.Ashrafi Bhagat, art historian, scholar, curator, who's right from her thesis doctoral work onward, her research area has been South Indian modern and contemporary art. We have Benitha Perciyal, practicing contemporary artist, and all based in Chennai. So there's also a strong connection with, not just an interest in South Indian arts, but the location of Chennai. I would like to briefly introduce our panelists. I know they do not need an introduction, but for context, Dr. Deborah Thiagarajan is an avid museum goer, intrigued by nuances of cultures and languages, and has resided in India since 1970. Her academic journey includes comparative literature masters, bachelor's degrees, cultural anthropology. She's an art historian of ancient Indian art and culture. She founded the Madras Craft Madras Craft Foundation in 1984, looking to create a museum to represent the arts, crafts, architecture and lifestyles of the south of India. The inspiration for which came from her work in rural Tamil Nadu. The Dakshinachitra Museum, which is what she set up, opened in 1996 December. And she has been involved with research, school programs, exhibitions, writing, fundraising, and so on, and has also been a collector. Much of her collection finds its way to the museum. They also represent years of her work as convener of INTAC in the 1980s to 90s, 84 to 98. And she's also a well-known author, having written on architecture and museums and edited several of Dakshinachitra's books. Mr. RM Palaniappan is an alumnus of the Government College of Fine Arts, Chennai, where he studied fine arts and ceramics, and then later did advanced lithography at the Tamarind Institute in the 90s and served as artist in residence at Oxford University. Mr. Palaniappan is a recipient of multiple awards, most prominently received the Charles Wallace India Trust Grant and the International Visitorship of USIS. He's also been honored with the Lalit Kala National Award and participated in several print biennales. He is one of our major printmakers, one of perhaps the best-known exponents practicing in India of the multicolor viscosity process, which we have very few artists that have mastered the process. RM Palaniappan has curated several national level exhibitions, is best known, if many of you know, for major trends in Indian art in 1997. And I'm moving. Dr. Bhagat, you get 2 lines, sorry. Dr.Ashrafi Bhagat is an art historian, art critic, author, and independent curator. She was associate professor and former head of Department of Fine Arts at Stella Maris College. And her doctoral thesis was on the critical study of modernity in Madras School from the 1950s to 80s. Dr. Bhagat is also a curator and a pedagogue, a teacher. We have Benitha Perciyal, who is a Chennai-based artist, also trained in Government College of Fine Arts and Crafts. Her practice engages with themes of memory, displacement, and cultural narratives. And well, she's had too many exhibitions and awards to name. I'm really, really grateful to each of you for accepting this invitation to come and speak today. I will start us off I'll be a little chronological. So the idea is for those I'm going to assume not everyone knows the nitty-gritties and details of the early days of Dakshinachitra and how this came about. And I think it's very germane to the conversation, and therefore I will request you, Deborah, I will give you the mic, and I will give you very specific questions to respond to. Before Deborah begins, just a quick, as I mentioned, Deborah was already in India from 1970, was involved in Tamil Nadu, was already a part of INTAC as a convener, and had hosted a couple of major exhibitions. And that's the point at which I leave you to then speak of how this idea came about and how did it go from idea to museum.
I have to tell you first that I was told the topic is community museums, okay? And so, yeah, you said the topic of today was community museums. No, anyway, I just thought I'd tell you that the museum environment in India is changing. It's and particularly in Tamil Nadu as an example of what's happening in all the states. So Tamil Nadu is going to build a 54 crore museum in Mahabalipuram. They just renovated the Victoria Public Hall and opened that as a museum. They are taking down 2 buildings in the Egmore Museum Complex, the Bronze Gallery, and a building next to it. And they're setting up 2 new buildings with state-of-the-art installations. And this is indicative of what's happening around India. So the museum environment itself is changing greatly. What is still missing, which is in Europe and the US and perhaps in some of the Southeast Asian states, is an alliance of museums where museums are they're basically training institutions because they introduce in the countries what is new in museums, what are museum practices, what are the programs that museums have, how do you fundraise, how do you survey visitors. All of these programs are there. We have one international organization called ICOM, the International Committee of Museums, and they also have all these different programs. So they have education, technology, communication, publicity, so many other different programs. And when you become a member of ICOM, you also say what committees you're interested in. So there's a whole learning process for museums. And since I'm supposed to start at the beginning, when we opened Dakshinachitra, even before, there was not a single trained museum personnel in Tamil Nadu, not one. No, even if you talk about who was at the Madras museums, they did have an archaeologist who was a curator, Mr. Desikan, and everybody else had no experience at all in museums. So how was I to run a museum? So one of the first things that we thought of was we have to train, which is why we have interns, okay? And I can see you're all here. Now, you want to know why I started the museum? When I came to India, for 3.5 years I worked in villages in western First for 2 years in Western Tamil Nadu on the Tamil Nadu Nutrition Project, and for 1 year I was asked to evaluate the midday meals program throughout Tamil Nadu. So I had over 3 years of total village experience, 6 days a week, every day, every week in villages of Tamil Nadu. That's where I learned what life is really like in India, particularly in the south. Because when I was there, I'm talking about 1972 to 1975, there was huge amounts of poverty in the villages. Since I was on a nutrition project, the Sunday came once a week, and most people were laborers. There were a few landowners, but there were also craftspeople. So I was in the home of weavers and carpenters, masons, you name it, the different crafts and weaving technologies. In this area, there were lots of weavers. And so I was introduced to the aesthetics of the village, and also the architecture of the village, the folk performing arts. Most of the laborers, your folk performing art teams are made up by most of the laboring community. And it was quite an experience, I must say. The generosity and hospitality of Indians in rural India is something I had never ever been acquainted with before. It's certainly not at all there in the West. And so when I came back, we moved back to Madras from Coimbatore. Then I kept telling people somebody has to start a museum. And finally...
Why museum? What did you want to museumize?
I felt that the rural communities, the folk performing arts, the artists and the architects needed a platform. And I thought that all of this would disappear, the crafts would disappear, the houses would disappear, everything that I saw would not be around as India modernized. So I felt there was a need to preserve. And how do you begin? You asked, how do you begin?
Also, you had a clear South India focus because you had the
I was
Crafts
only
Museum
interested in South India because North India has a lot of museums.
And the Crafts Museum existed.
And the South was very underrepresented. There was very little. Mysore had something. Mysore was really one of the few places that had anything worthwhile. And even Kerala had nothing. I mean, they had one national museum which is pretty much dead. All the school kids went to it, but that's what each of the states had. So I felt that, and what's in the museums is Brahmanical culture. It's all the sculptures from temples. It's all temple culture. There is nothing that speaks to the common man. Now, in the Madras Museum, one day they have one anthropological section. And I was upstairs one day. They had the Lambani outfits. And then a whole group of Lambanis did come in. Because all the pilgrims on their visits, when they go from temple to temple, they're also told to go to the museums. So they were looking at the exhibition, which was pretty terrible. And then they were looking at their own costumes, and they felt that they were much better than what was in the museum. So they found it fun that their culture was displayed. So anyway, I said I have no idea how to start a museum, but I had an IAS friend, and she said, look, the Tamil Nadu government's not going to do a thing. If you think this is important, you do it. How do you do it? How do you start? So I had a friend who had started a society, Kathy Spagnoli, you might have met her, Paramashivan's wife. You might know her. She said, look, I founded a society, so this is how you found a society. And then the government puts out brochures. This is what you have to do for the structure of a society. This is what you have to do for a structure of a trust. So I wrote down everything. And then my husband said, you have to go to an auditor. So I went to an auditor. He said, you have to put in a lot of comments for the poor, which I did. And then we went to the society office and registered it. So that was the beginning. Now, This was in 1984. 1984, I founded the Madras Craft Foundation. I put together 7 like-minded people who felt that culture was important. And then I said, one of the main objectives was founding a museum. So at that point, we had no money. I think each of the 7 trustees donated 10,000 rupees. We had no land and we had no collections. So how do you start a museum when you have nothing? And that's the beginning. It took 7 years almost to get land. And I was chasing the government for land because we had no money. I felt we couldn't buy anything. And then finally, when I was just about to give up, the chief secretary, who had been in New York and had been in the US, he called a meeting with all the heads of the departments. And he said that the government had decided to give us 10 acres of land, 5 acres now and 5 acres when we set up the first 5 acres. So that was in late 1990.
And until then, had you been collecting objects?
So what we had done until 1990, we had a grant for folk performing arts. So we did a total survey and study of Villapatte in the Tinnavelli area. And then we got a grant to do architecture. So for 2 years, we put a team together in Kerala and completely documented the architecture of Kerala. Then, because we'd done Kerala, and when we did the architecture studies, and when I first started, I went with Benny Kuriakose. He had been a trainee an intern with Laurie Baker, and so Laurie suggested that he could guide me. And so we went together for 2 years, back from the tip of Kerala to the top of Kerala. And while we saw these houses, I also collected. At that time, everything was so cheap because nobody had any appreciation for anything Indian. So what I could buy for 100 rupees then is like 10,000 rupees today. People would give away things. If I went into a house and I said, gee, that's really beautiful, that they say, you please have it. Because that's the hospitality, that's the basic hospitality. Someone says they like something, you give it. And so we collected that way also. And
some of this, one led to that Kerala exhibition, which you did in Lalita.
Yes, then we had, so we thought, okay, let's test the waters. So we had in 1987, we had a major Kerala exhibition, which went on for 10 days at the Lalit Kala. We brought in all the folk performing art forms. We brought in the craft for exhibition and sale. We had an historical exhibition. Actually, Dinesh Natesan brought in all his fabulous collection and his guards, and so that was part of the collection. And we also had classical music, and we even inaugurated it with elephants. We brought in the elephants and the Panchavadam and all that. And
so I'll direct you back to Dakshinachitra. Is the research on the Kerala houses, the architecture, that prompted this great interest in traditional houses? How did you go
How did I get interested in traditional houses?
And why houses, actually?
And why houses?
I will say before that
yeah.
This is it's what we would call a Tughlaq project, completely audacious and harebrained on paper, that let's transplant.
So in
houses.
the beginning, when I was the one big mistake I made was to think that we needed a museum in the city. So then we were looking for like 1 acre, 2 acre plots. And for that, I could not bring in houses. I could only bring in elements of houses.
So you had decided you wanted to bring the
I wanted to bring in elements because so much of the architectural decoration is so beautiful. And then when the chief secretary allotted me this property, and I took a look at it, I suddenly knew that what we needed was houses. And also, houses just fit. And because every place I'd gone, I could see that there were different types of houses in the different regions. And so that's when, Actually, I would say about even before we got the land, I'd started collecting parts of houses. Then when I got the land and we started to build, I realized you cannot work with parts of houses, you have to do whole houses. And so it's impossible to put up just a part of a house, you have to put up a whole house. And I've always been interested in architecture. And then I married into the Chettiar community with these huge mansions. So I spent a lot of time looking at houses and looking at how people use the spaces in the house. What do people think about their houses? So that was a big part of the philosophy of the museum also.
So when you transplanted a house and you began with the Kerala, if I'm right?
Yeah, we began with Kerala because I bought a house from Chettinad, and I started putting that up when Dinesh and Natesan gifted us the Trivandrum house. Okay. So the Trivandrum house was the first house which was completed, and then the second house was the Chettinad house.
My question is, even with the first house, and this is extensively documented, you can read about how the houses were transplanted, rafter for rafter, timber, measuring, completely then transplanting. What did you have in mind with how you wanted a visitor to engage with a house? What were the kinds of encounters you expected?
Okay, well, realized that by this time, Laurie Baker had been appointed the architect. And so he did the basic concept of the layout of the land. And he was a vernacular architecture specialist because he'd always looked at vernacular architecture. Vernacular is domestic architecture. And he had, he just knew how to build. And so after we did first we did 2 years for Kerala, then we did 2 years for Tamil Nadu, this architecture research. We got 4 grants from the Craft Museum in New Delhi. And then 2 years for Karnataka, and the last 2 years for Andhra Pradesh. So we spent 8 years putting teams together to do the architecture research in each of these states. Then, how do you choose houses? So I wanted middle-class houses. I didn't want really fancy houses. And I wanted houses which were representative of 80 to 100 villages in a region, so that it became an architectural style. It is basically, you can see the architecture stylistics and aesthetics of each of the states. And then how do you choose within that? So for Tamil Nadu, we choose different professions, from merchants to Brahmins to agriculturalists to craftspeople. And then for Kerala, we chose South and North Kerala because the architecture styles are different. And then because of the 3 religions, we chose 2 for Hindus, 1 for Muslims, and 1 for Christians, because that basically represents the religious difference. Karnataka, we looked at the different regions, the ecological regions, because the ecology is really what determines a house. The ecology and custom determine how a house is built. So that's what we did.
And you've, I think, frequently spoken of a house as an archive, which is a living one. So what I want to ask you is, you can bring a house and you can people with objects, according to time, and this is how people lived, or this community lived, and these objects. How do you still transform it from that to making it a living?
How do you make it living? That's where all the programs come in. That's where the staff have to be very, very good. Now, since I thought I was talking on community museums, C.K. Prahalad, who was one of the top financial gurus, okay? He once asked me, he said, "What do you think your main challenge is?" I said, "Funding." He said, "No, you're wrong. Your main challenge is people. Because when you work for a museum, it's not a job. You have to be dedicated. You have to want to introduce the visitor to something that they don't know, they haven't seen, they have to be able to engage with. So you need dedicated people. And not,
You built
you
that
don't.
in that 10-year period? If I say 96 to 2000, early 2000s, did you build a team, or did you have a lot of people who joined you?
We started with volunteers, actually. And this museum was really put up by about 20 volunteers who worked full-time. We had,
Water system?
so first of all, running a museum is like running a business. The only difference is that it's a non-profit, and a business is for profit. So the first thing you have to do is get your accounts straight. And that's not so easy, actually. So by word of mouth, we found all these people. So Balakrishnan was a cost and a chartered accountant. He put in all our systems. And because I'd worked for a computer company before coming to India, I wanted to digitize immediately. And he worked with a coder, and we digitized. We were one of the first organizations to be fully digitized. And then we had Esmutaya recommended Vishweshwaran. He was a senior vice president at Metal Box, and took an early retirement for health problems. He set in all the admin systems. Your systems are the most critical thing that you need in a museum, in any organization. You have to have systems, and people have to be trained to follow those systems.
And in that first decade, what was the museum experience like with the visitors that came, and with how you were displaying the houses? I'm assuming only the houses had come up then, correct? Not much of the rest of the campus. When you spoke of training people, I understand about the systems, and I was wondering if we can, for want of time.
Okay, so we had 5 male volunteers. They put in the electrical systems, the water systems, all the things that you need, and the construction. Okay, now there were 5 or 6 female volunteers who were absolutely superb, and they brought the museum to life. We sat and did the programs. We did like Visalakshi Ramasamy, she did the canteen, she helped with exhibitions. Geeta Ram did the craft shop. We worked on all the programs and how we wanted the museum to be. So it was a joint effort of volunteers, basically. And even these volunteers today are still active. They're on our advisory committee. But that's why I said it's really a community museum. And whenever I had a question, I just went to people and asked, So what you don't, when you come with something, you don't know that much. So you have to know, okay, these are the good people. These are the people I have to ask. I need answers to my questions. And so I went everywhere. I had no qualms about asking anybody anything. I even went to see Subramaniam when I was doing a project on the Kuam. I don't know how to work with politicians. What do I do? So always know that when you go to a top person, they'll always answer you.
Okay, good learning there. I want to look at the first decade, and you had set up the houses. And by early 2000s, I want to know how this shift to wanting to expand your collection, so to speak, because you have objects which are actually displayed in the houses. So you are not just about showcasing the houses as architectural, as specimens of architecture of a recent past, but why are the objects not just objects of living, furniture, spaces and kitchens, but also all the craft objects or things of, whether it's textile, things that you displayed. So there is a very strong interest already in display strategies. How did you decide to, or when did you, that you also want to look at the wider artistic practice in the contemporary period? So
that's why you have Palaniappan here.
He directly comes in, or do you?
Palaniappan is my guide and my mentor for contemporary art.
So that's where I want to bring you in.
Because she's done the Madras movement.
Absolutely.
So I think I will give the mic over to.
So this is where I do want to bring you. So would it be around 2004, 5?
First of all, we have to
backtrack.
Maybe because with our hard work, this museum is here, and it is one of the full-fledged museums. I mean, because when I was there in New York City and all, some museum, some part of the China town or something like that, or houses, they do erect, even in the Victoria Urban Museum and all, they do have it in there.
Or one Toranam, but an actual
small portion of it here, the whole
full
thing is here. it connects the people. The museum has to connect the people. Actually, it is fulfilled here. That's why I'm so happy. I'm so happy to associate with there for many years. I learned a lot of things, but even though what do you ask?
So how did this either decision or this wanting to move to or expand to
the
contemporary
part
art?
Of it is, ultimately the collection it's going to be there in the in a museum it requires actually. And how the contemporary collections we got it from the Lalit Kala, we had always we have programs the camp programs I do collaborate with Dakshinachitra as a space. They are also funding a little bit actually.
So that came from you?
Because of that, we collected and we shared that, the output of the whole programs.
So these are the artist camps that Lalit Kala was organizing.
It is always have the first choice. So we said this is the better
and
thing, take the better thing.
better things. Being an artist and also part of this, and also I know that the importance of that, the collection. I want, our collection should be in everywhere actually. It should not be there only they go down. In the Lalit Kala we have collection, but we are not having our own museum. But many years we are talking, when I was there. And I worked 40 years actually in the Lalit Kala, 39 years actually. And many times, I had a discussion with them, we have to have a permanent gallery. But,
we
still
don't have
we don't have a
till
permanent gallery, but we have a collection of 3,000. When I was there, during my tenure itself, I collected 2,500 objects, art objects.
And that includes the national award winners annually, which are so many.
Many important collections are there actually. I don't know the condition now.
So Lalit Kala was
my portion. I wanted to share good things also to the other organizations who are collaborating actually.
Right.
It is not to grab only for the Lalit Kala.
Of course.
Because ultimately it has to work has to go around the places.
So the artist camp was organized at Dakshinachitra, correct? But by Lalit Kala.
Yeah, it is a camp or workshops or something. We collaborating. I collaborated with not only the Dakshinachitra, I collaborated with the museums, different museums.
Okay.
And when I was there in Lucknow, different museums also I collaborated. And also we have collaborated with institutions, art institute, colleges, arts colleges.
Okay.
And so very interactive programs. The camps are, but it is not like a curated or something like that, because it's our government organizations and the opportunities has to go wider. So we are not able to do it actually, but we do select the best people. How we are selecting the best people?
So can you tell me about how these camps happen? So you organize the regular Lalit Kala process by which you would invite artists to apply, and then, but the camp was held here. And I am going to come to somebody who actually attended the first camp, which was 2006.
When we have the camps, well, first of all, you asked why did we go into contemporary art? Because we wanted to show that culture is not stagnant. We have, we're showing from the past, so we should show from the present also, and show how the past actually influences the present and the future. So I thought it was very important, and because basically people don't go to contemporary art galleries. I thought this is an opportunity to expose people to a wider range of art than what they would normally see. And so I thought it was a very important step for us to do contemporary art. And for these art camps, you have 6 or 7 artists here all during the day. What are you going to do with them? So we take them to Mahabalipuram. We do particular programs in the evenings for them. They also show their collections in the evening. We have talks among the artists. So we make it very, very vibrant for the artists in the camp itself. And then, because, and because of Ashrafi, we brought in students from Stella Maris. And so they could interact with the artists. So that's also an important aspect. And I'm afraid since he's left the Lalit Kala, we have only one tribal artist camp with Shovan, but nothing else.
So this is the first camp that happens in 2006, correct?
I don't remember when we had the first camp.
That's what I see in your...
Must be there in 1990.
Benitha was...
We had it actually in 1987 or something like that. 97.
But Dakshinachitra is, you do it only...
No, 99 we had a first show.
You had a first camp here?
Yeah, first day.
I see.
And we had another program also, slide lectures and so. slide lectures also. It's a very interactive program, I think.
Right.
Mostly, and during this, our camp times, artists used to show their slides and interact with them.
And this is what I wanted to.
Very much.
This is what I wanted you both to speak to. Right, I know, and I'm just going to come to because Dr. Bhagat, you organized an artist camp yourself around the same time at Stella Maris. This is 2003. I don't know if you remember, because you were teaching there. And this was my interest too of a museum like this when it holds artist camps. You create and offer a space to nurture art. Also, this is time from the 70s onward. We didn't really have an art market per se till maybe 2008-9. It really begins to pick up. What does the artist camp, what does it offer an artist? How? And so, what would you say with your own experience when you conducted your camps?
See, I had organized before I start anything, I must pay a fantastic tribute to Debbie.
Yes, indeed.
For the reason that we are sitting here, for having founded, conceptualized, strategized, implemented her ideas and created. It required a lot of stamina, endurance and time, which she seems to have really spent. And it's really, I think you should
and
all
consistently
give her a big hand. First a big
completely.
hand.
Oh, undoubtedly.
No, it's really something because it is because of this that I had to do a little research, and I realized that there's a big halo behind Debbie. I mean, it's a place. No, it's a place where arts and crafts come together. It's a place where, modern, contemporary bridges the gap between the crafts and the tradition.
Indeed.
And it is something, which I had already seen it when I was doing my research on the Madras art movement, that this is where, with tradition, that they were able to,
They looked to tradition.
given the title of regional modern, which, however, was never there with many of the movements, which happened across the country. But this was the only place, where vernacular arts, the crafts, the performing arts, all of these came together, and how it completely changed the complexion of modern art, that it had to be given the title of regional modern. Now, coming to the question of, yes, I did conduct what do you call it? An artist camp in the college. My main aim was, to collect works from the artists, which otherwise I would have never got it.
I see.
And I also wanted the students to experience what it is to be with they were all well-known artists. They had already gone into history. So they were all there working, and the students had an opportunity of not only seeing them work, but also to interact with them.
Right.
And it is that interaction which I was very keen to have, because that was something which I had learned from my research, that how important, if you have to understand and contextualize art,
Absolutely.
in its proper context, one needs to know what the artist is basically doing. So that is how the art camp was established. It was conducted, and
I asked it also in the context of this is a college conducting an artist camp, and it would also to give us a sense of how artist camps are conducted and what maybe a museum here was doing, which was, as you said, also there are other things that are being added to that experience, and for the artist, its value being created, not just with being shown the collection, to basically ask that how you would see a camp conducted at a museum as opposed to either by yourself as an institution, a teaching institution, because it was that, or you had one or two galleries that would conduct camps in the earlier decades.
No, definitely. Conducting it in an institution was very different. For me, it was a challenge. First and foremost, as Debbie says, funding was the main aspect of it. So, we actually had to beg and, get the funding, which we were able to get because there were very generous sponsors who came forth. And of course, not that it was done on a very elaborate scale, but the main aim was to expose the students to the artists, which otherwise they never had the opportunity.
No.
Of course, it was very, very different from otherwise the camps that are being, conducted.
Mm-hmm.
There was no such thing as having their works discussed or, showing their works or any of those things. That was not there, but they simply worked there. And artists were very happy interacting with the students and, getting all their questions and
to see process and
to answer them. So, yeah, it was very different, but a camp in this place, would make a tremendous difference in the sense that there are also visitors who come here. And it gives them a larger exposure to see what the artists basically are doing. Many of them don't even have an idea of A to Z of what art is all about. So when they see an artist working, they get curious. And when they get curious, they want to know more. And if they want to know more, that's when they enter into art.
Indeed.
And that is what, an art camp here in this particular space would actually help. Provide that visibility not only to the artists, but to create awareness of art within the public space.
Absolutely. And this is something I was going to come to later, and I'm glad you brought this up, of the kinds of visitors Dakshinachitra gets. And we can come back to this later, but a major problem that all museums face and institutions is this whole obsession with footfalls and not getting enough people, and that is the art visiting kind of crowd. And art remains seen as elitist and difficult and at a distance.
It's not only the camp.
But here...
I was given an opportunity to curate.
I'm going to come to that.
Here, Finite versus Infinite is what I entitled it.
29.
Now, putting up the show, Anita told me, see, these are all the problems you have to be very careful about, because there are people who just walk in and who have no idea about, what art is, and they'll touch anything and everything. That's what exactly happened. But what was heartening was that people who were walking in, were curious.
Indeed.
And they were looking around and they wanted to know, and, they were asking questions to whoever it was there. So that is the added advantage, of having curated exhibition, which has been happening, for a long time. And this is how the awareness for, art, it's one of the means of spreading awareness about art.
Benitha, I want to invite you to speak to you're an artist who was present at this artist camp. Can you speak to a little bit about what that camp was like, what your experience was it, and also you can do it, think of it as in comparing it to other artist camps you may have attended. I know there were few, there weren't as many, there weren't even as many opportunities for artists to meet each other. Also material constraints. It wasn't even that easy to get material to paint with or work with. This would be really invaluable to know what that experience was like. I'm also trying to get to what a Dakshinachitra artist camp atmosphere was like.
I was here 2 camps, in fact. So it was, one was, I think most women artists camp I was, so it was, for us, like it's every other camp, but we always, for the camps, we stay, work together and everything, but here, the ambience was totally different for everyone. So we had the conversation were a little more intense, because you have something to see all the time and you start speaking about it. So that was the kind of experience we had in this year. So that is, I think for everyone they will have this experience of living that kind of a space, because you always spectate or you will be a visitor, but living or being in that space and creating that will give you a different sense. That we had another experience, because
how long was it?
I think it was like week. It was one really week, long. 7 days. So it was.
That's actually longer than the usual 2 to 3 days.
Same time.
And again, like you said, resources are the reason it's hard to.
And
host.
also, the same thing every day evening. We used to have slide presentation and conversation and all those things. Which
and performances also. Some of
they used to see performances, everything. So it was like that kind of experience we had.
To be exposed.
But yet the other thing, like I don't want to come to that part, but. As an outsider, outsider, whenever we go somewhere, we always, spectate. But being in that space, that is a special experience we had. And also, I was invited to work in the museum in Centre Pompidou because the work was not, it was very fragile, so they invited me to come and create the work in the museum. So that was another quite fascinating experience. But people are little open that the material what I was using will really create dust and everything, but they were very open, they cleared everything, that and all. People are open to that kind of thing. I was also quite surprised in that sense, so again, when I visited the museum in Bhutan or here, the sense of going back, you enter 300 years or 500 years of history and you're looking at it, and it is very inviting. Each and everything I wanted to touch. Believe me, I wanted to touch. I couldn't resist. I wanted to touch. So that is, I think that is the secret, and that is the power of the thing which you experience, that which cannot be created, which has to be brought from the treasure of the past, and you have to show that is the thing we are showing it. So that is the main thing. These kind of experience you have in this kind of special museums, you don't get anywhere, because it might be somewhere else hidden in your house, but you may not realize it. But when everything put together and when you realize it, most of the time also when you experience certain things in first glance, you might not understand. Maybe time will teach you, or over the time, through something else you might learn, or you might see them in a different perspective. That's how you learn as well. So,
what do you think? It was very early in your career. You had just, I think, graduated. You're talking about the 2006 camps, for instance. What did it do for your career, this camp or camps like these? Or for your practice? I don't mean career in any monetary, commercial side of it. For your practice.
Actually, to be honest, camps, you find it a little more pressure because you work in a particular times, 6 days, 7 days. You have to really work. Sometimes you may not be very justified to your work. It's a timeline you work. Because some people work in a process. So this 6 days or 7 days, it kind of shrinks you in certain ways.
Especially if you work slowly or your work needs.
They generally get the painting done and then bring it and just do one work which is there.
A lot of people does, but most of the people that time, we all did it here. We work 24, since
were you
we
also
stay
responding
here,
to the space around you? Do you remember? Was that part of your experience of being here? Did that also impact whatever you made? Did that impact what you made?
Of course.
Because you also lived here. And I want to use this to talk about, so artist camps have been one major way through which the collection got built. As you said, they managed to get 1 or 2 works for each artist. What are some of the other ways? We've spoken of it before, and it'd be nice to know. I'm interested in, there's the vision, how you started it, and then you expand to modern contemporary space. And if we come to some of the other aspects, a crucial thing has been collection building, even if you may not have seen it as I'm amassing and building an art collection.
Well, as I said, most of our collections, when we researched for the houses, we also bought along the way. Because for every house that came here, we basically went to see 5 or 6 different houses. So someone would call us and say, I know there's a house coming down. So Benny and I would jump on a train and go see that house. And most of the time, it wasn't okay for the museum. So, but then in the vicinity of that house, we'd look at, they have small bronze shops and things like that, and we'd collect from there. And
then with modern contemporary art?
And so one of the main workshops we had was just before the museum opened. It was with terracotta artists from, we did with Ray Meeker and Deborah Smith. And we did with both of them, we took a 2-week research tour through Tamil Nadu to look at pottery, what was happening, and particularly those artists that did figures for the Ayanar shrines and the Mariamma shrines. And then we had a 1-month camp There was a small property nearby. We had it because we didn't have anything for them to stay here. And so for 1 month, we built all the traditional kilns. We documented every single day what was happening. Actually, Ray documented that.
That's incredible.
And Hans Kaushik was also involved in the project. And from that, we learned a lot, and it gave us the insights into the potters community.
Is that when the INR shrines were built?
Yeah, that's when we decided we'd do an INR shrine. And that INR shrine came from the same research trip. In fact, we were all exhausted. We wanted to get back to Madras, and then I saw something inside a road, and I said, no, we have to go there. And then we found the shrine that we have. In fact, I recently revisited that shrine, completely changed. All the old, wonderful, 15 feet high horses are all broken. It's all cement figures. It's completely changed. It's expanded hugely. But
so that was an intervention then.
Yeah.
What you've.
Then we also had. I'd love to have more of these. We had one international camp with the Swedish Museum, and I think we have to try to get more connections to do more of these. It was tough raising funding for that camp, though, but we managed. But we brought down tribal artists, and from Sweden, 6 artists were brought, and we had also 5 or 6 contemporary Indian artists. And I think the theme was the thread. So all those people who we had Sheila Gowda, we had Archana Hande, we had a lot of very good Indian artists. And we took them also, including 4 of the folk performing artists, we took them all to Sweden. And so they got the exposure there also. Also the Calcutta, for tribal artists, we go all over India, not just here. So that was a way of building up our collections more.
But much more involved in actually resource building.
And Haku Shaw was sort of the coordinator. I don't know, Haku Shaw has now passed away, but he was a brilliant coordinator for the program.
And he conducted that workshop.
Yeah. So,
and there are
then
two paintings of his
now
from
for collections, a lot of people are donating.
Correct. I wanted to
So,
speak to that.
and we had one woman donate a lot of paintings, primarily tribal paintings, and but good paintings. And then different artifacts and textiles. It's all now we're getting more and more collections.
And what, about 5,000-6,000 pieces,
yes,
isn't
we
it?
have
The collection is
over
that strong.
6,000 artifacts.
And many artist families then also donated.
Yes, so like Mukaya donated his collection, and who was it? Yeah,
No, Mukaya.
Mukaya.
Permal, I think only a few works which they got.
Oh, Perumal, I bought some of his paintings. I think maybe he donated one, but I purchased some. And, not Santanam. Another artist was going to donate everything, his whole collection to us. Unfortunately, he passed away before he could give it. No, his family won't give it.
Oh dear.
But basically, the artists are quite. What we used to do, we never charged artists for the Vajra Hall, and we'd say at the end of the exhibition, please give us one of the paintings which you painted that you put on the exhibition. All artists came forward and gave the painting, so that was another way we increased our collection a lot.
This is also what I wanted to speak about, that it's very interesting, the kind of strategies, non-profit museum that's also not state-funded, that's small.
Yeah.
You're also not saying you're not a museum that has everything, which is what most museums do. There's a very specific focus, regional.
Yeah.
And within that, these are very interesting strategies that you've adopted. A lot of camps, yes, which was a great way, and then to hold these workshops and trainings. But but to also be, one is donation, to also actually step up. When we discussed this, that you did 2 things. One, you invite artists to come and do a show without charging them, and then that's a way to get some work. So that's very, that's really proactive. But also to want to buy. You've actually purchased a substantial part of the collection. Is
not too many. Only about 4 or 5 paintings have ever been purchased. No, Yusuf Arakal, we bought one Perumal, we bought one or two. Santana Raj, I bought. And recently from Madurai exhibition too. Not more than that, actually. Very, very few.
And then, of course, the craft objects. Those were
crafts we bought. All the crafts have been bought, except for those that families have donated.
Sure. Which was it a lot? You still had to. Much of it was actually purchased.
See, craft was so cheap until India had some exhibitions abroad. Like the first one, I think, was at a gallery in London. And then they produced a catalog. And that catalog came back to the people who were normally selling artifacts. Then they said, wow, this has gotten a lot of prestige in London. I'm going to up all my prices. And then America had the exhibition of India. And not just craft, but they also had the traditional artifacts. They had a classical exhibition. And so again, it's so funny because if people from abroad appreciate it, that brings the sense of the value of it back to India.
Yes.
Very sad. Now it has to come that the people themselves value it just because it's beautiful or just because it's significant or historically important.
So this is interesting and significant to know how this collection, all these different strategies that were adopted. I want to now move to your great interest in resource building, in education, because you are a museum, and so primarily, and I was wondering, I'll also invite Dr. Bhagat, you've been involved with the Museum Arts Management course, where you teach a course, and as a scholar, if you could speak a little to what that association has been like, and I'll ask you why. It's not just that you come in as an external resource person, but when they teach, I'm assuming this is only the Museum Arts Management, right? That's the one course that's been consistently taught for many years now. So fundamental, of course, you require the basis in history of art. What's that association been like, where it's sort of much more different than a taught course in a college?
No, the thing is, it started as arts management. I think it goes back to about 2005 or so, if I'm not mistaken. The students used to come to...
This is the 18th year, I think.
My goodness.
And in the beginning,
No, it's much more than that, Debbie, because students from here, arts management as it was called, they used to come to college, and I used to take classes there. Then something happened with the authorities, and they said, you can't take classes like this. Then I stopped, I was forced to stop. Then you called me again in 2014. That was a Gina's batch. I started with 2014, and of course it continues to this day. The thing is, because it was arts management, it was good that art history was included. A module of art history was included, because you do anything, everything with the museum, with the galleries. If you don't have a background in art history, it makes absolutely no sense. When you're not able to identify a mural from a miniature or a Renaissance painting from a Baroque painting, it makes no sense. So, it was with that viewpoint that, I started, and I started from ancient to modern. And I taught them, of course, very, very briefly, it was like a survey art history. 2014, when I came in, at that time, Padma was the coordinator.
That was full-time. The beginning of the course was 6 days of academic
theory,
work.
And when 2014, when I started, for me, it was even more challenging than teaching and having taught in college, because, it was intense 2 hours of teaching from ancient to the modern. I used to take about 80 sessions throughout, and exhausting it was. But then slowly, I think, over the decades, Debbie hacked it. And she says, no need for so many art history classes. But it is very, very essential. It is very, very essential. When you give it as a survey, it just goes over the heads. So if you give it, in an intense manner, it makes a difference. And I think art history is very, very, very vital. It is seminal in a course like museum management, which is today, and it's something fantastic what is being done here.
Yeah, and it's
which
a
no other,
course.
no other institution, I think across, except in Bombay, perhaps, they conduct a course like this.
They don't have a collection that students can go work with.
See, it's not even a question of a collection, but it's a question of having a background of art history.
Oh, no, the grounding is absolutely vital.
And without that
Totally
grounding in art history, they cannot stand anywhere.
Correct.
That is the foundation on which they can build up anything, including craft history. That is equally
that's what I was
important.
going to just-
Design history is equally important,
Exactly.
which, is being given to the students.
Correct. Because traditional art history, one, it's also the classical art. So here you are looking at what is not the classical arts at all. So you are looking at folk and craft, but also design.
Everything,
and wider
yeah. I
visual
mean,
culture.
everything is, it is very holistic now. They are also given classes in how to design. There is, I think, somebody from NIFT, what's her name? Nina.
Nina Sabnani.
Yeah, Nina Sadani. She
Right.
gives the design classes. Which, and I always insist that if you are studying art history, you need to connect.
Absolutely.
Not pigeonhole it and said, oh, art history finished, so
Indeed.
keep it aside. There has to be that connectivity.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, art history doesn't work. It
Absolutely.
has to have that
Indeed.
connectivity.
Which I also brought it because if you just do an art history, even if you go all the way up to doctoral level, people do all of that and teach for years with no clue about other practicing forms, tradition of any kind, and what does design itself mean. And in general, there's everything
exactly.
from advertising to things that are contemporary
what do
culture
you
looked
think?
down upon.
See, this is an intensive program. I mean, it is not like a history
But
of
to
art or
make
something
it
like.
wider-
So within a short period, this course has to give everything actually, curation.
So this is such a
conservation,
great
and
way to
arts
teach.
management, fundraising, all those kind of things. So
Correct.
the history, it is there that about that, either painting or culture, but it's a very little actually. But during your period, what you said, it's a long period, but now we shorten up because of this actually.
No,
Because
but
it's
the
a more
need
practical
to,
because we need
which
this
is
country
good, which
requires-
is fine.
This country requires more management people, but we
Yes,
don't have
younger,
younger people,
trained,
but more museums
exposed.
are there. Whether it is a function good or not, I found this is one of the best museum in the country, functioning really good,
Consistently.
really good. Other than the National Gallery of Modern Art or the
Yeah.
Delhi Museums. Or
Yeah,
something like that.
and I'm bringing this up for us to just to highlight how training or teaching, pedagogy, and resource building is part of this museum's activity, where it isn't just another course. That so many courses are offered.
See, for example, I'm telling you, I'm from the College
elsewhere.
of Arts actually. We have a very wonderful museum, it is inside actually. And a very beautiful collection when I was there. I
But
saw the
people don't get
beautiful
to-
thing. Where it is actually.
Yeah,
it's not
where-
functioning. Sustainability is not there because of management, because of funding. Because
Vision.
of curatorship, because of the art, there is no idea of collecting. So many, we are talking about that all the teachers and the great masters work. They would have collected all from the same colleges, same college. And in United States, I found, almost every colleges, they have their museums. And every museum, they have a beautiful collection.
Even university colleges will have.
Wherever I went there, four
museum.
colleges I went there for teaching and other things. Everybody, they have my collection actually, in the museum.
Yeah.
And time to time, they are showing it up and I'm getting it up. This is not there. That it requires funding. It requires funding and
I think
Also awareness, so which is
Like,
again what a museum has done, right? With the kinds of visitors that you're getting, what you were speaking
we
of.
don't
you're
have
creating-
museum
It requires
culture. We don't have
dedication
But
of
here-
staff. Dedicated staff who say this is important. These objects have an importance. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Because if it's just, now I have to go there again, clean it. And the college,
It's not a job, it is a dedication. And
Yeah.
it's a
Oh,
love that they have to
undoubtedly.
work.
in the College of Arts, so many of the objects had been stolen. The textiles, they had this Kodali Kadapur, they had 4 saris, just junked, Then I brought in a conservator from Delhi, from the Basic Conservation Institute. he agreed to conserve them without cost. They wouldn't send them. You see, if you don't have an understanding of what you're working with and the importance of what you're doing, you have to know that your job is important and that the things that are critical, that you have to take care of them.
Absolutely.
Only then does it work. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You know, it's just like that.
When I was curating a major exhibition for the government of India, that's a major trend in India, cross country, they gave me opportunity to visit many museums and very different collections. I went more than some 40 museum collections, all contemporary collections, and even many Lalit Kalas academies. The collection is in very bad shape. That's we have to place it our critical analysis also. If then why it is everywhere dust and very beautiful and extraordinary works are in very bad conditions. Why it is? Because there is no proper people. Dedicated people are not there. They don't know the value. They don't know the value system is not there for that.
And we have ruled this for a while. National Museum itself.
Yeah, I had an experience when I had curated the Madras Art Movement at NGMA in Bangalore. So they had the major collection of all the Madras artists in Delhi.
Correct.
In Delhi, so I went there and they opened up the storeroom. I get goosebumps now. When I saw the collection, it was in such a bad state. It was just dumped there.
Yeah.
All the important artists, Vishwanathan's work, which is about 8 feet by 7 feet or something.
One on top of it, actually.
Just, placed against the wall, torn. And I told myself, I said, is this what the value of the artist is, when it is purchased from them? And then, I had to make the selection, and then it went to for conservation. After it was, finished, then only, you could look at the work of art.
Yeah. One more thing,
And that is absolutely it is very important to contextualize.
The head curator there, the conservator, he's saying the curators here don't want to touch the work. He said, if you don't touch the work, how do you, look at it, and how do you go about it if you don't want to do that? They want an assistant with them who will do all the work for them.
Goodness.
That was an attitude.
And in fact, that's the joy of handling actual work. You tell, because you have artists sometimes who painted oil so well, it looks like it could be.
We don't have proper storing places. When I was there in Australia, many museums, National Museum, the storing place is more than an exhibition place. Such a beautifully they displayed all their stocks,
this is what
proper inventory system. Once you keep that inventory system in a proper way, everything will be saturated actually. We don't want to keep that inventory system in India. That is the problem starts from the beginning. At the beginning itself, there's a problem. Once you manage the inventories, automatically the responsibility will come. Automatically everything will take its own place. That is what I understood through my,
True, but it requires vision.
Systems. They're very, very important because you have to have continuity in what you do.
You need people at the end of the day who really are invested
So you asked, again, one other reason why I started Dakshinachitra. When I was with Intac, so we went, Esmutaya and Sri Ram and I, we all went to the corporation and we said, we need a Heritage Act. And they all looked at us and laughed. They said, there are not more than 5 people in this city who care about buildings at all. We were looking at buildings. They don't care if something comes down, what comes up. And so then I went back and I thought, well, if people don't have any appreciation of what they have, then if I set up things in a museum setting, I'm saying, okay, it's in a museum, so it has value. Then it should create an awareness among the basic visitors that their heritage has value. Because you have to realize that when we started, the colonial hangover was still so strong. People thought that nothing that they had done had any value.
And all tradition was sort of
tradition was, what was that? Nothing.
80s,
So it's a process of creating awareness, of creating appreciation. It's a time takes
this
time.
is a remarkable achievement.
Yeah.
It is not to say it to you because you
Well,
found it.
no.
This,
I mean, the process is still undergoing.
No, certainly.
It'll take more time.
I'll switch to now slightly the unfun bits. How do you sustain such an institution? How do you, what can institutions do if you start with vision, you have enough people? Two things I noticed. One, of course, it always takes a village. You have people. You've had an army of people in the early years who just gave their time, people who were experts.
Yeah.
And then over the years, bringing in younger and younger people who could be then made to care about.
Because we had a philosophy that everybody, particularly since we were a young museum, that everybody imbibed right in the beginning. And that carried through.
How is an institution like yourself to sustain where it's not profit, yes, but also, as I said, it's not like you collect, it's not about everything. Like most museums, you could have, now we are getting into the realm of more specialized museums, which is very recent in India, not even a decade old.
Yeah. You'll see a lot more museums coming up in Madras, in India, basically.
Right.
And small museums, small community museums.
How is a small museum with a very specialized focus to go about, how do you be sustainable where you fundamentally you cannot sell? So you've had all of these interesting interventions where you had your craft bazaar, you invited craftsmen. Also another thing I want to, this was a thing I was just going to finish towards the end of the kinds of trainings that you've done which work both ways. The resource building is not just with that you teach city folk or you teach the people about tradition, but also the way you're working with craftspeople too. Not in the way of, not in the manner of some of the urban, craft designers where you're telling craftspersons to make things for the urban market. Not that kind of a design intervention, but what they can do in terms of this, to skill up, to be able to sell better, to just know what's happening around and not feel like you always need some educated middle person, so-called educated English-speaking middleman. That's been a very interesting set of things you've done for many years now, these workshops
our main philosophy is that our major stakeholders are craftspeople and folk performing artists. They should be treated with all the dignity that you would treat any chief executive.
Yeah, any skill.
So there should be an equality, and we're a very flat organization. We don't have a lot of hierarchy. We don't like hierarchy.
So can people come up and just ask you things in your organization?
I used to spend a lot more time here, so I used to mentor a lot. I don't mentor so much now. But even our early volunteers, I used to spend at least 1 hour every day with every volunteer on the phone, and because you have to create, you have to know what are their interests, what are their skills, how do you give them the confidence to do what they have to do. That's all very important, and I did that for months and months. And I think mentoring, I think the older staff have to mentor the younger staff. I think that's very, very important. And I think we need more of that, more teamwork. All of that is critical.
On this, like I said, less interesting but very important, the financial, etc. end of it. How did you think of getting city sponsors and getting them to care about
I think my main
cultural heritage, which was beyond, CSR requirement in checking a box?
So I think, despite what C.K. Prahal had said, I think funding is a challenge, and basically we were very fortunate. I think from 1989 onwards, we had Ford Foundation funding. And they basically held our hands until I think our last grant was 2005 or 2004.
So grants is one way.
So they held our hands until we could be self-sustaining. Without that grant, I don't know if the museum would still be here today, because they funded operations and salaries. That's the two things, and programs. These are the three things they funded. Then we were able to fundraise for capital expenditures for the buildings. The Development Commissioner Handicrafts was our first funder. They gave us 40 lakhs, and over a 10-year period from 1991 to 2001, they gave us 1.5 crores. And with that, we matched it by everybody in our organization fundraised. Every single person fundraised. And when everyone is involved in building something, they're excited about what they do, and they were very successful. So we managed to get, for every rupee we got from the Development Christian Handicrafts, we got over 2 to 3 rupees from corporates. And now we've been very successful in getting capital funding. I think for our operations funding, for salaries, we're going to have a challenge in the future as prices increase and our salaries increase every year. We are going to have to be very creative in how we fundraise and how we build a sustainability within the campus. And we're looking at setting up a cultural hub, which I think will bring in more funding that we haven't had before.
You're also doing very interesting events now.
Yeah, we have to do many more events, and maybe we have to charge more for them.
Because up till now your model has been, you sold nothing. You pretty much ran on your ticket sales, correct?
Yeah, we
and
run.
When craftspersons came, they got to keep.
Yeah,
all
we
of
don't take any commission from our craftspeople.
I find that really remarkable.
No, because our stakeholders.
Indeed.
And I've been to all their houses. I've been to all the villages, so I know how they live, and I know they need the money.
Indeed,
you know?
Always much more than
they're
us.
It's just
no,
like
but
that.
that is really laudable, because
I don't
very
know.
quickly institutions become middlemen when they host.
No, but actually there is also the Friends of Dakshinachitra.
Yeah,
And
now
there's
our friends have been activated by Maya. And,
No, that's
they're doing a lot
quite
of events.
a crucial group,
Yeah.
which does
That's a
help
route to
in
go. So-
contributing.
See, the best also, when I was talking to the curators, how they are doing, collecting the artworks, when the curator is looking for an artist for, watching for 5 years, 10 years, how the artists are improving or developing their work, and what is their position in the status and then he plays that his request before the meeting. Then from their meeting, from the administrative meeting, it goes to the Friends of Society, Friends of the Museum.
You're speaking this as a trustee, how
museum
it
wants
is.
this kind of work. Then the museum people, the friends of the society, some people will say, okay, I will sponsor it, I will buy it. That is why when you are going to the Western Museum, every painting nearby, you can see that who is the donor.
The donor, yeah.
So that is one way we can also collect it.
And that's been very successful here. There is a consistent.
I've had
many
almost,
people who
it's been
donate.
impossible for me to get anybody to write, this has been donated by so-and-so, under every object that's been donated. And we had so
It's gonna
many
be
donations.
too much, yes.
Because a donor needs recognition. They need, they need to know that what they've done
And an
has
acknowledgement.
helped the museum, and the museum is appreciative of it. So they need that
And that can also encourage further donations by
exactly.
others.
You have to.
This value added.
That's been a hard problem here. How to nurture donors. You can't just take money from a donor and say, now I've got money, now that's it. You have to make them feel a part of the organization, that they are an integral part.
And also, what is art?
That's a very important point.
Management. She is doing it really good. That is also for sustainability. It's very important actually. Otherwise, it will vanish. We have a corpus, but we can spend it. It will go.
It
Next
will
moment,
finish.
you cannot feed money for your own people, and motivating the time to time, like orientation to the own staff. It's all also very very important actually.
I'll do a small tack. I know we're short on time. Benitha, sorry I haven't been able to bring you in too much, but I wanted to ask, as a practicing artist, what does a museum space like this mean to you? Do you bring your own students? I was wondering if you can speak to what your experience, because as a practicing artist, and when you come to a museum like this, you probably bring students or you bring colleagues. And you're Chennai based, so this has been an institution that has probably also formed for anyone of our generation. This has been a bit of a landmark space. Can you speak to maybe what this space means and what you would want as a practicing artist? And I'm not just saying in terms of either show your work or your work being acquired, which has happened. What does somebody working with an art space want from a traditional, a museum that is focused on tradition, on craft, now also looking at, contemporary practice? What would you want, so to speak? What would you like to see? Because this is a museum that's quite successful in what it's already doing. I'm not sure if I'm conveying, as somebody not just involved with visual art it's not external.
See, most of the artists, like what they were talking about, Perumal or Mukha, everybody has a very strong connection with the traditional forms.
Correct,
So
correct.
maybe I am not, I have certain elements and sensibility of things which I carry from there.
Yeah.
But I don't take it that, but I always use that as a reference in the work.
But by the way, she's a niece of A.P.
No, you very carefully kept that quiet. My goodness. You're going to have to talk about that now.
So, for me, it's always, see, in my house, I have few works. We don't have, me and Prasanna, we don't have our works, but we have works of other artists, but it's loaded with crafts. For me, whatever I eat or, whatever I cook, everything is made out of hands. So that's how I connect.
Correct.
So
And
for
your
me,
practice
it's
is
very special. So in that sense, you can make out like, when I come here, I enjoy more than anything. I experience, I enjoy. That's how I connect, and then that's what I take it back. So that you don't get that sense everywhere. You will have those kind of experience in very certain spaces.
In some spaces only, yeah.
Other day, me and Deborah was in another meeting, and then so I'll stop this and I'll shift to another point because talking about the space and museums, like we had the question, they were raising all those things, and then what about the state museum? We have this contemporary section. It's been not acquired. So if you go to the Museum of Madras, if you go to the contemporary section, you have nothing. And it is also in a very bad state. And also you have a very beautiful Amravati wing, which has been closed for a long time, and then it's been renovated. But again, you please go and experience this. I don't want to put into words, but you go and experience a word, because only 3 parts of Amravati, one you have even Andhra doesn't have, Chennai you have, in Delhi you have, and British Museum you have. I think 2008 we went to British Museum. When we opened the pamphlet, we were just going through everything, where and all we have to finish, because we were like there for 2-3 days, and we don't want to leave anything. And we saw Amravati. When we went straight away to Amravati, it was kept in a properly glassed, box. And now you please go and see in Madras Museum. Even that day I asked them, what is the state of that and why we have this. So what I'm trying to say is, so when you go, experience, see everything, and come back and look at that, you have this question. This is kind of, instead of talking about this space, we have to have this kind of question: what we have already, we have, which is like a treasure you cannot recreate now. But whatever you hold, what are you going to give it to the future? And that is the open question for everyone, including me, but what we are going to do about it.
So true. But the reason also of talking about this space is because we've all ruled about the state of our museums for a long time. I mean, what you're also speaking, I'm personally also witnessed when I was in Delhi and I was studying. We had the opportunity to go, because one of our professors could, this is something I've never discussed publicly, they had access to the professor alone could go see the wall of the National Museum, and said there is a Jahangiri period work which is mold eaten and so forth. So while that's happening, and which is also the argument Western museums make against reparation, it's based in fact that yes, we don't look after it. But when museums like this can show us the way where you can teach value and not,
surprisingly,
it's not
I think 2008
also.
or 9, I don't remember the year, but I've seen a beautiful curated exhibition of Jiten Das, of a Panka exhibition in the Craft Museum. It was quite fascinating to see an artist who collected over the time and exhibited from his. So there are things which is a kind of promise also when you see. That became a teacher. See, these are things, even not to do certain things is also your teacher. Absolutely. So that is quite fascinating.
Correct. We are ending this, but I was in any case wanting Maya, who's also left, and Deborah. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think is if museums wanted to replicate this, You know, these have been very useful. Yeah, because I mean, she would have been an important part of it, having started this. But just to kind of end on a note of what way forward both here, because they are, yes, expanding. Things are needed here too. I'm testament to they require storage, better storage for the art collection, for instance. What might be the key learnings? Somebody wants to start a museum which is very focused and it's small, dedicated to an idea and by dedicated people.
But I think it's already established. It's not a static relic.
That should be the key thing.
It is a living organism. It has evolved, it has developed. And I think it has added so many activities and so many other aspects of traditions, of crafts, of modern art, contemporary art, performing arts, music, dance, all to do with the tradition, that is the folk art, etc. I think all that is already there. But I think the crucial question here is that one needs to make this place to generate knowledge. It should be a hub of knowledge generation.
They do some.
There should be research.
Seminars and they do publish.
No, but it should be documented. There should be research. There should be archiving. All those, all those aspects have to be there. For future, scholars who want to do a research on this place, I mean, all these things should be available. Absolutely. They have a fantastic library, undeniably. Yeah. But archiving and documenting, various projects, seminars, publishing, I think all those aspects are equally very important. And it is because of that only you will find that there'll be more future possibilities of making this institution grow. This has already become an institution in itself. So it's got a marketplace, it's got a library, it's got various courses which are being conducted. All of those are there, which makes it very integral to a living museum. Correct. And the domestic architecture which is here, it's an immersive experience. And as she says, she wants to touch.
Yes.
But that touching, I don't know how much is allowed here.
No, not, and we don't touch, but you can have the desire.
But the thing is, visually, you can touch many things and you can feel many things. And that is the, very seminal part of this exhibition here, where you feel the space. Architecture is experiencing space. Indeed. It's not, dead things which are placed there and it's one label there. No. Exactly. It is basically, if you're looking at it from the anthropological point of view, it is mining, it is repossessing, and it is recontextualizing.
And in many of the displays, it connects to the communities the houses came
that's
from.
What communities which are now, like especially the Chettiar community, which is getting dispersed. Where it used to be a joint family living together. All that is going out, but the house here, has that living element.
Totally.
That living element is there,
which is the one place where I find that too.
Am I right?
You don't find it. It's not a static house displayed.
It's not. It's a very much. No, it's a very dynamic space. It's a very mobile space where you can feel it. Yeah. I mean, when I enter a house here, I get a positive energy.
No, really.
Because the whole place is also, thanks to Sharat, who has done so much of greenery around it, that it's a pleasure. It's actually a visual delight, when you come here. Every aspect of the entire, Dakshinachitra is aesthetically done. Of course, it has taken time, but the roots are spreading, the roots are growing deeper, and that is what matters, that it has to still grow deeper. And it will come with the future, whoever, handles it and manages it.
Thank you. That's very well put and perfect way to end it, I think. Thank you very much. Thank you, Benitha. Thank you, Dr. Thank you very much to you all.